2022 being difficult on the economic front, rising unemployment, a World Bank report saying South Africa is the most unequal society in the world. So what does it look like then on the economic front in 2023? Professor Raymond Parsons, Northwest University Business School economist, joins us live now. Prof, thank you so much for your time. The president saying that although things were difficult, our economy is beginning to grow somewhat, especially when you're looking at where we were during the pandemic. Would you agree?
Yes, good evening to you. Let me say at the outset that I did ask Father Christmas to send me a new crystal ball, but unfortunately he sent me a small one which is rather opaque, so I'm on my own this evening, but it perhaps reflects the cross currents that we are facing as a country, both from a global point of view and from a domestic point of view. I'm not going to dwell too much on the domestic side. We're a small open economy. We will be affected by the slowdown in the world economy, which everyone accepts this year, because I think we should concentrate on the issues over which we have control. That is, domestic issues. And we know, of course, that some of the problems to which the president has referred, which we've experienced in the past year, inflation has been very troublesome. We've had disruptive load shedding. We've had high interest rates. We've had unemployment. All these are going to persist into the new year. I think the important point here is, what are we going to do about it? Because I think the confidence factor and the hope factor don't revolve around a litany of our problems. We know what they are. We know what that agenda is. What we've got to say is, in the new year, what can we do differently? Whether in government in particular, of course, but business and labor, what can we do differently to convert what appears to be another tough year into a better year? Can we ameliorate some of these negative factors? And I think that's very important when we unpack what our growth prospects are for next year.
And Prof, you know, one of the things that the president touches on, and as you say, that it's time to really deal with some of what we're facing as problems and also really look at some of the solutions there. Load shedding has been the biggest issue for a lot of people. You think about small businesses who were buckling under the pressure of COVID-19, the pandemic. At the same time, they're looking at rising costs, and now there's load shedding as well on that front. The president's saying that it's being dealt with, but is it fast enough?
I think whether it was the ANC's conference earlier this month, whether it's business or labor, I think everyone has agreed that this is the top priority for our next year. We've got to fix Eskom, because whether you're talking about our exports, whether you're talking about consumer spending, whether you're talking about investment in this country, the fact remains that the one factor that influences all of them is that we can't keep the lights on, at least most of the time. That is a permeating factor for everything. That doesn't mean to say there aren't other things we have to do, but if you can't keep the lights on, all the other things you do are going to be largely neutralized. So we've got to say to ourselves, we have to say to Transnet, you've got to get those commodities to the ports so that we can export them. On consumer spending, we've got to say we do need job creation on a much bigger scale, and we need to make sure that our social support sort of mechanisms are effective. And finally, and very importantly, for our longer term growth, investment confidence. We need to get investment up so that we get the assurance of our longer term growth. So it's really a question of the government in particular, but in conjunction with the private sector, making sure that the economic reforms which we've promised and to which we are committed will indeed be implemented this year. You know, I've said often, if we could factor talking into our growth rate, we wouldn't have a problem.
And I was in conversation just a couple of weeks ago with Business Unity South Africa, and they say that, when it comes to investor confidence, there's several factors here. You're thinking about the crime rate in South Africa. You're thinking about the fact that corruption also bleeds the public purse, and stringent action there when people are behind bars in orange overalls, that is also going to give investors some kind of confidence. What then, as we go into 2023, should South Africa be looking into to try and boost this?
But that is the agenda. We know the agenda, what has to be done. We've got to get on with it. All of us, not only government, but the other stakeholders, such as business and labor, have got to collaborate with government, because government alone will not solve these problems, but government must be seen to be proactive and mobilizing those agents it needs to get, in fact, a delivery. What is the permeating problem at all levels is lack of delivery. We must ensure that what we promise happens. And I think if anyone has to take new resolutions, it's got to be all of us this year to say we will assist and we will put pressure on government to ensure that what has been promised will be delivered. As I said earlier, it's easy to have a litany of what has gone wrong. Much has gone wrong. But what's important now, if you want to build confidence among investors, among consumers, among business, indeed in our society as a whole, you want to be able to say, we're going into this year with a difference, we are going to deliver. And that will turn the situation around a lot quicker, because it deals with those factors over which we have control, unlike some of the global factors which may hurt us, but which we can offset or neutralize if we are seen to be doing the right thing domestically and building our resilience and our growth opportunities in a way we have not done before.
And Prof, someone watching tonight is wondering how things might be looking on the interest rates front. You've touched on it a little bit at the beginning, but, a lot of people buckled under pressure as we saw interest rates rising, and people are in debt, and servicing that debt is becoming more and more difficult. What can they then expect next year?
Look, it's going to be a tough year. I think that we must understand that you'll see that perhaps inflation, at least the rate of inflation, will come down. We'll see that in the next few days with our fuel costs. That will be very helpful. Interest rates will continue to rise, perhaps not as rapidly as before. So I think one must accept it's going to be a tough year. What I'm saying is that we must couple the expectations of a difficult year with solutions that are action-orientated, and that send a message to the nation, to business, and to labor, and to government, that we intend to make a difference to the mood in 2023, that we have the means to do so, but we need to ensure that it happens. And that's the most important point. In fact, if I could cite what our president said when he was elected 5 years ago, the nation doesn't want words. It wants action. We've got to act.
Definitely action, action, action. Thank you so much, Prof. And let's see then if those calls of action are heeded as we go then into the new year. And I hope you get a bigger crystal ball then next year and Santa does deliver. Thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. That's Professor Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University Business School, and he's an economist there.